me. So if you're a fan of video games and a fan of video gaming YouTubers, you know that while you might like their content, you pretty much don't really want to know about their politics, because it's more likely than not that they're going to be pretty toxic. They're going to be things that you don't really agree with, especially if you're coming from a left-wing perspective. So I was happy to see that someone who I watch quite a lot, I even watch his movie reviews, is Angry Joe, who seemingly came out on Twitter last night and endorsed Bernie Sanders for president. And of course, would you expect anything less? The backlash from his so-called fans was really, really toxic. So I'm going to read out some of his tweets and read out the reaction to the things he's said. But he's been pretty good in general on politics, especially on Twitter. And people always call him out and he doesn't really care. And I guess he tries to keep it fairly apolitical on his channel. And what his point is, on my Twitter I can say what I want. It's not my channel. So really, let's get into it. So it started, like I said, last night. It might be a couple nights ago by the time this video goes up. So Angry Joe tweeted, "Bernie won Nevada, nice, crazy since his party despises him. MSNBC hates covering him. He's a communist, brackets he isn't. He's pure socialist, brackets he isn't. But Bernie bros, he has free houses, you'd laugh if you saw them. One is required and so what? Russia, capital letters, and so far attacks on him have backfired." So here is the toxic comments at start. So one is, "Lol, he's literally a communist." The quartering, everyone's favourite guy on YouTube who just complains about the most ridiculous rubbish, says, "Hey, I'm happy for him and the bros, but it's like everyone forgot 2016 and what the DNC did for him. Just like Donald Trump talking about this stuff, I don't take it seriously and I don't think they actually care that the DNC is screwing him." Someone else, Cage Ferguson, tweeted, "He's literally called himself a socialist, holy shit, stick to video games." Someone else called Wolf said he's totally a communist dude, but yeah, he won. And then Joe replied to this tweet in particular and said, "Nah, he's not. Only uninformed idiots and smear artists or indoctrinated tribalists refuse to do their own research on what a pure communist looks like and believes in versus what Bernie does. But yeah, he won, didn't he? Weird, right? It's almost as if you believe in an exaggerated lie." So I like the point he makes there. In terms of Bernie being a real socialist, I actually do think he is one. But of course, the rhetoric he's been using in the last maybe 5-6 years has been more centrist, not in terms of an American perspective, but in, I guess, a European perspective. And the things he's advocating for, a lot of them aren't radical, like universal healthcare. There are some more radical ones, but also some of them are radical solutions to American problems, like sending people to prison for marijuana violations, which doesn't really happen in many other parts of the world, especially not as severe as in America, thanks to people like Joe Biden. So then another thing I couldn't believe is Skill Up, another gaming YouTuber, said this is a good tweet. I find that really weird because this is the same guy on his Layman Gaming channel, because he's one of the Australian guys who also does that, complains about SJWs all the time. So I do find it weird, the crossover of people who complain about things like SJWs but are also liking Bernie Sanders. I guess it kind of shows he does have this mass appeal. So here is a tweet Angry Joe retweeted. So it was J Weeks Game and he said, "Let's be honest, Joe, he will never beat Trump. He is a dirty commie. He will run this country into the ground. The demo shits have literally zero, and I mean zero chance. Stick to video games, stay out of politics. America will never be run by a dirty commie." So yeah, it's lovely fans, and I think for someone like Joe to see that would probably be quite depressing. It is a toxic culture online, especially gaming, so I do appreciate someone like Joe coming out and saying this. So then he writes another tweet saying, "Guys, if you don't want Bernie to succeed, that's cool. Just tell people you don't want your taxes raised to pay for healthcare nor education. That's the most effective attack. Also, you don't mind the ultra wealthy getting richer because you think you'll be one day. That's totally fine." So another funny tweet to really annoy his so-called fans. And yeah, I agree with him. You know, you're being greedy by not wanting your taxes raised to pay for things like education and healthcare. But obviously the nuance is, if you pay for more in healthcare, you're going to pay less for your insurance, which overall will save you money. And I think that's just something that Bernie has clarified time and again. So then obviously there's some more angry tweets here. So some guy called Alex says, "Don't you have a game review for us to watch? Entertain us and leave your politics at the door. You were born when the Cold War was still going on and you have to know it doesn't work." Again, a stupid tweet. This guy looks pretty young and look at the disrespect. Don't you have a game review to make for us, to entertain us? But I don't want to hear about your personal views on anything, especially something like video games, which is extremely political, the topics it often deals with. I know people like to pretend it's not, but it definitely is. And then see my videos I've made which are probably my favourite videos, on Call of Duty and Metal Gear about the politics in those games. I'll link them in the description. So another person with a picture of Jeb Bush with a clown face says, I will not vote for a man whose ideology is responsible for the deaths of hundreds of millions of people. So you're not going to vote for Donald Trump then? And Ayn Rand style capitalism? Also, thinking that the government won't just pocket your money is naive. Politicians are suspiciously wealthy as it is. I will not give them 52% of my income. Well, I doubt this guy makes enough money to be taxed 52%, especially if he's some troll on Angry Joe's Twitter. So some guy with an Anakin profile picture, which I don't know how I don't see the irony, says, I am more motivated to vote for Trump in November because of how far the left has gone. Now, this stuff is ridiculous, especially coming from a Star Wars fans. Think about the subject matter of Star Wars. Think of how left-wing George Lucas is. He literally said the rebels in the first Star Wars films are inspired by the Viet Cong. So it's quite ridiculous to have an Anakin profile picture. And then the whole point of the prequels is to show how an authoritarian guy can take over a democracy from the inside with the consent of the people. How is that not left-wing politics? I don't understand, but again, people don't often understand that art they hold up as, you know, their favourite symbol. You see people with the Anonymous mask and the Guy Fawkes mask from V for Vendetta, and obviously things like Watchmen, written by a guy who is really, really far left. Again, they always, I guess, adopt these images for their own sakes. So just to sum up, Joe talks about this sort of responses he's been getting, saying, always fascinating to see people who follow my personal Twitter say stick to games, don't talk about, are usually the same people who follow all the same internet personalities, who talk about nothing but politics, just their brand of politics from the side they agree with. It quickly devolves down to, you won't vote for the same party I do, so fuck you, in the replies. I just want you to know I don't care who you vote for. I understand why you'd vote for Trump and I understand why you'd vote for Bernie. I won't lose respect for you either way, just vote. Also, I'm not sure how my Republican followers feel about primaries, but if the DNC manages to find a way to give a candidate without the majority of votes their nomination, I want everyone to know I'd never vote Democrat again in my life. I'd be an instant Republican. Now, I don't really like that sentiment at the end of everything, but I genuinely, from following him for a couple of years, I don't think he's serious about being a Republican. I think he's just saying that because he realises, like a lot of these video gaming personalities, that most of their fans, people who donate to their Patreon, people who watch all their videos, don't have good politics, and that's just inherent in if you're a massive video game personality on YouTube, who has, I think he has nearly 3 million subs or maybe more. So I think he kind of had to do that. But like he's saying about Bernie and saying about these things like healthcare, I don't think he'd actually be a Republican. I think he just has to say it. I do understand the sentiment about never voting Democrat again, and I do think he's trying to be a bit more centrist here by saying, you know, I respect you if you vote for either side, but I feel like in the position he's in, he just has to do that. Because for me on my YouTube channel, obviously I'm really genuine. You guys all know my politics. I'm not hiding behind it, and it is a politics channel. So hopefully everyone in my Patreon who gives me money, everyone who subscribes to me, likes the videos and comments, you're not gonna get annoyed at me if I start talking about left-wing politics. You know who I am. But with someone like Joe, when you've cultivated your whole personality on video games, and then you want to have a political opinion, it's harder because, again, like I'm saying, video game culture is toxic. Despite the industry having one of the highest amounts of diversity in terms of things like LGBT members who make these games, it's still completely toxic and dominated by these reactionaries, by these awful people. So again, it could be easy to go here, yeah, Joe is just a centrist gamer bro, and I would agree with that to some degree, but I do feel a bit of sympathy for him, that this is his business. And I mean, I don't expect him to just be like, these are my principles, you know, like it or get out, and then essentially he doesn't have this business anymore. So of course a lot of you guys will be like, well, you should do that, and a lot of people said he should never got into this sort of line of work in the first place. But again, I don't expect everyone to be super political and just double down on these really principled stances. But I think this whole thing on Joe's Twitter is just a good example of how awful gaming culture is, and you just got to respect someone who does stand up for his beliefs. Even if he doesn't completely double down on them, he does say all these good things about Bernie Sanders. Another guy, Rich from Review Tech USA, another guy who talks about SJWs and stuff, he also basically is backing Bernie Sanders, which again I think is really good, that Bernie Sanders can appeal to gamers who make their livelihoods on video game topics and SJW topics, and they have these awful audiences. So I think Bernie really, because he's so principled and because he's advocating for common sense things like universal healthcare, it just makes him more appealing. And you can see in all the polling in how he beats Trump, in how he does well with pretty much every single group compared to other Democrats. He is the best choice going forward. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Please leave a like on the video if you liked it. Maybe subscribe to the channel. Check out my social media, so at The Cavernacle on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Please check out my Reddit, that is the big thing for me. So the subreddit is r/The Cavernacle, and my personal Reddit account is u/TommyCahill1995. Patreon and WordPress in the description, and if you made it this far, thank you for watching.